And hello, everyone. Oh, I think I forgot something. Give me a second. Yes. Now this is all right. That okay. We dealt with the music. Well, you didn't hear music because I don't have the sound for this scene, but I still have some text. Perfect. There we go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's Wednesday stream. We're going to talk, we're going to discuss things that are happening, and things indeed are happening. I'm hoping you read some of my community posts, and I'm pretty sure you've read a lot. I know a lot of you are extremely worried. I am, to be honest, a lot better spaced than I was a couple of days ago. And I think we have certain positive news, so to say, to speak. Now, these positive news are not coming without their own challenges, so I'm pretty sure you can understand, but we're going to talk in details. And today we're going to be talking about the political aspects of the war, what Ukraine can do, cannot do, and we're going to discuss the things that I feel were not repeated enough, or because the media space got saturated so much in recent days that we don't really see what is the core message that we're still having and what's the situation where we are at right now, because I feel that a lot of people are perceiving what is happening right now a lot more dramatically than I think it should be. But before we start, as always, this is a live stream, and if you're watching it recording, thank you so much for doing so. We're gonna try to do it as fast as possible so you can watch it in recording because you cannot interact with chat. But I will try to read all of the questions that I will be answering to, and most importantly, all of this that is happening on this channel, including this stream, including our communities, including everything is happening because of the moderating team. It is because the moderating team are putting so much effort, so much time in this channel. We are able to have, especially in these turbulent political times, relatively good, clean, nice conversations that are easy to read, good comment sections, and we can always act civilized and communicate civilized. Thank you so much for the moderating team, and please join me in giving them a hand. All right. So let's start. First and foremost, there's not going to be a Q&A as I would usually do today. So today we're just going to be talking. If you want to write something to me and hope that I will see it, write at Ukraine Matters in the chat. Then the message gets highlighted for me. So I will potentially see it. But today we're going to be kind of going back and forth. So I'm sorry in advance for everyone that if I will not be able to answer your question specifically. We are right now in a turbulent situation. First and foremost, because what's the stuff with Ukraine, right? Is Ukraine done? That's pretty much the question that I have gotten the most over the last couple of days. People looked at what's happening with Trump. People looked at like what's happening with Europe, and it feels that to me specifically that a lot of the media space got saturated by a lot of the comments and communication, but the substance was not as prevalent in media space. I feel that if we did take away a lot of that white noise that is polluting the media space, then we get into actually a lot more reasonable position. And if you have read the posts that I made on the YouTube that recently, is that I saw that specifically from the Trump's administration, since recently there has been coming a lot of noise with regards to Ukraine. With that said, due to the certain reasons, I will not now treat the U.S. administration as it's favorable to Ukraine. And it doesn't mean that like it cannot still be helpful for Ukraine, that, for example, maybe we'll still be able to buy weapons from the United States and it will still contribute to the victory of Ukraine in this war. But I will kind of try to not cover the stuff that that the US does as much, and instead will focus on the actions that US is doing. This is just to keep the focus of the channel to focus on the things that are actually mattering for Ukraine that are actually contributing to that peace through strength mantra that has been introduced just recently. And I'm actually happy that it got introduced, right? So today we're going to be talking about some of the things that Trump said. Today is going to be, you can say, like a last stream where we're going to be focusing around these political aspects and including Trump. After that, most likely I will transition almost fully talking about European Union and the Europe in general and other allies of Ukraine and what they're doing, how they're contributing. And we're going to be looking at what US does specifically when we're going to be discussing what concrete actions that US is going to be taking will lead to. So I hope that is understandable. So today, what I want you to comment on, firstly, anything that is on your mind. As I said, it's going to be back and forth. I will be jumping on your ideas. My perspective for today is trying to talk on the key talking points to address the worries that you have. And I will try to explain why these worries potentially are not that big of a worries, or they're lesser worries than they appear to be, because that's what majority of them are. And I will try to tackle a lot of the disinformation. So for example, we're going to probably look at some of the posts that Donald Trump made, and I will explain what is the disinformation and where it's coming from. And so today is our day to talk about all of that. We're going to be discussing everything that you want. So whatever is worrying you, this is the stream for us to discuss whether your worry is valid or it's something that is just coming out of the left field. So I see already some people have been posting some super chats, so maybe there has been some worries shared here. H. Sarid is saying, hit the like button to support Ukraine Matters. Yes, please hit the like button. And if you want to support Ukraine Matters financially, I want you to stop, and instead of supporting Ukraine Matters financially, if you have some disposable income, first and foremost, please consider participating in our fundraiser for the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The best thing that we can do right now is directly support the Ukrainian Armed Forces, because this literally saves lives, and they need all the help they can get right now before they reestablish new systems with all of the changes that are happening on a political aspect. So participate in fundraiser. If you have some disposable income and you want to support the channel, I really appreciate it. And then if you have some additional money still left, you can obviously support my channel. This is my primary job, so obviously any additional money will help sustain me and my family. But primarily, please, if you're just considering what I can do to make Georgie happy, participate in fundraiser. Let's help out Ukrainians. This is going to be the best. All right, Canada, hello again. Thank you for helping our ways of life. Thank you for donating and saving lives. Thank you, G, for directing us the right way. Thank you, mods, for keeping us safe from idiots and all kinds. Canada loves Ukraine, absolutely. And Canada, thank you so much for being a member for 18 months. This community would not be as good without you. You always have very valid inputs, and thank you so much. H. Saurid, big thanks to the mods. You know the usual suspects. Yes, H. Saurid, we do. Thanks so much for 13 Canadian bucks. 14, sorry, it's 13.99, like a good discounted support. Hellfire, gifted 10 Ukraine memberships. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Raina, welcome to the Brother in Arms. Appreciate it. Hans Eriksson, thank you so much for 200 Swedish kronos. It's up to Europeans now. Thank you, Georgies, for staying positive. Slava Ukraini. And I will address this point about whether it's up to us, the Europeans. And then Polis 911, thank you so much for 15 Norwegian kroners. To be an enemy of US is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. Ukraine and Europe now learned this. USA is not our ally. Europe must get stronger. Okay, so let's start with this worry that people have wrote in these super chats about strong Europe. We already had like a last discussion where we talked about Europe needing to come to their senses, and the good news from all of the fallout from Trump that we are seeing is that this is indeed happening. Now, is it enough? I think that's kind of the core, right? I would consider that you agree with me that that Europe in general is supporting Ukraine. We're hearing a lot of political statements that Europe is supporting Ukraine. We're hearing a lot of supposed commitments. The biggest question is it enough? And in my perspective, it is. Why? Mostly because where are we? if we would be right now in 2022, right? If we would be with the old Europe, the undecided Europe at that time, that didn't have their capabilities growing, if we would be at that time with just what we're having, I would say no. However, we are now in a situation where for 3 years, Russia got severely depleted. Now, I need to address here, obviously, that potentially United States can lift sanctions from Russia, and this will pretty much stabilize their economy. This is true, we cannot deny it. But even with more stabilized economy, Russia just in general is having troubles on the military front. Russia is having trouble producing new equipment. Russia is having trouble getting new equipment on the front line. Russia is having trouble getting the manpower that they need. Now, we've heard that there's going to be additional batch of the North Koreans that are going to be coming in. It's going to be additional 15,000 of North Koreans coming in. It's not going to be nice. But overall, we see that Russia right now, at the start of 2025, is in a much weaker state than it was in 2022. It was so bad for Russia that about a month ago we had a stream at which I said that the only thing that we need to do for Russia to collapse is nothing. If we just continue on what we have been doing so far without like additional extra sanctions or something, if we just continue doing what we have been doing in the same scale, then Russia will be done for. So if we say, if US quits and then now Europe is going to be taking over, maybe obviously Europe does not have the stockpiles of the weapons and ammunition. But important here to note is that there is a lot of commitments from the United States already to get the weapons to Ukraine. And that is already happening. And as far as we've heard, Donald Trump doesn't really aim to stop the deliveries of weapons. So we can roughly state that for 2025, United States actually have already committed quite a lot. It's not as much as they committed last year, but together with accumulated commitments that's going to be delivered over this year, it's still going to be not pretty good amount. If there is also not going to be a ban for purchasing, then potentially a lot of the extra money that Europe will start dedicating to defenses will go to the Americans to buy the equipment. So we will see still American equipment making their way to Ukraine. That is already good. And then the question of economy. Russian economy is obviously will try to circumvent sanctions, will try to go work around, but we've seen significant increase in Ukrainian strike capability. Already now, Ukrainian strikes are able to hinder about 10% of the Russian capabilities for oil production. Russia is trying to repair it, but Ukrainians are striking it again. This will just grow. This will only grow. Like there's no going back down. Like Ukraine is significantly growing their capabilities of drone production. This is homegrown industry that was grown from zero. So there is not like there is a big stockpile that they just had like Russians did, and now it's going to be depleted. No. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And while Europe might not have the weapon stockpiles, as I said before, it does have the money. Europe is ultra rich, incredibly rich. We will talk a bit later today about the size of the contribution of individual countries, just so we can see it compared. But overall, it would not be a crazy idea for Europe to even almost double their contributions to Ukraine. It would not break a sweat even, to be honest, in Europe, as you will see. So, long story short, strong Europe, support for Ukraine. I think right now we are drifting. I cannot say for sure, right? Because we haven't seen anything on paper. It feels that politically we are drifting towards the right decisions. There is a big discussions right now, and this is like an insight from a European, There is a big discussions, first and foremost, to align the European arms making. So we make essentially transnational contracts for the weapons manufacturing in Ukraine. So like something like Czech initiative, right, that buys stuff all across the world. We do this centralized initiative, and then it tries to get multiple countries to contribute to investments into the Ukraine. It is the plan of the Ursula von der Leyen that promotes the fiscal escape clause. So we are able essentially to take loans with no counting of our defense spending towards national budget deficit, which is going to open floodgates for a lot of investment in the weapons industry. And finally, something that I've heard just recently is that while the politicians in Europe might not, that this is something going to be very encouraging, while the politicians in Europe still maybe not have the full plan on how they can go on without US, mostly who's going to lead this, whose vision it's going to be. That's just normal. That's how Europe operates. There's always a discussion. There is no real discussion in militaries. The European militaries, as reported right now by some of the people that have been participating in like NATO meetings, the European militaries are approaching the current situation as a preparation for war. Like they are, on all seriousness, they are revamping battle groups, they are scheduling plans, they are preparing everything that they need to do in order to participate in a full-scale conventional warfare on the European continent, irregardless of what the politicians will decide. The military is already hard at work. So I feel Europe right now is in a much stronger situation than it was 2022. There is a clear pathway for Europe to take over what is happening right now in Ukraine, even if US leaves. It will not go without pain, mostly because Europe doesn't have huge weapons productions. But if we're going to cut a lot of red tape, which is actually the biggest factor to slow down any kind of production increase in Ukraine, it's the bureaucracy, because Europe, then we will see very fast that Europe starts building just a lot more stuff. So I hope this kind of covers it. I will comment on these questions a little bit more. All right. Mahadi Antor is asking, why is that? Does European leaders still fear their own European allies like the 19th century? I mean, there is some of that about the, specifically we're talking common army, but the biggest question mostly is whose vision for the army is going to be taken into account, right? If it's a common European army, is it Germany, the biggest contributor of money, that should be running the army? Well, Poland and the Baltics, like looking at it, it says like, we've seen how Germany run Bundeswehr. We don't really want Germany to actually run the military, right? So there is a lot of these questions that have been all along prevented us from a unified European army. But potentially they will take a learning class from the Ukrainians and create some kind of organizational centers where they can find some kind of solutions with command structures. Do you know if the Australian Abrams have been delivered? Did Australia contribute Abrams? I have a data sheet from the Kiel Institute. I can find if they have been delivered. Australia, Abrams, Ukraine. Australia to provide Abrams tanks to Ukraine, Defense Minister. That was October 2024. 49 M1A1. I have not seen any single M1A1 Abrams on the front lines recently. So potentially they are in reserve somewhere. All right, so that's the Europeans. Okay, let's see. There's some more super chats. Right. Normality remembered. What are the implications for intelligence behind the scenes support that America used to provide if they cut support? Wait. Okay. What are the implications for intelligence behind the scenes support that America used to provide the support they can support? Yes, intelligence is going to be one of the big things that US used to provide. Specifically U.S. intelligence apparatus inside of Putin's cabinets, inside of their plans, the insider information. They have a pretty, like U.S. has a pretty impressive spy network all across Russia. They also have good satellite capabilities, but we've also seen the Ukrainians building up their own capabilities. They've gotten their own satellite imaging solutions. AWACS, hopefully the ones that have been promised from Sweden, the AWACS planes will be delivered. And besides, like, it's not only the US that are using AWACS. So I think there is definitely going to be a hit for the intelligence, and it's hard for me to assess just the scale of it. The only thing that I've heard that the impact will be noticeable for Ukrainians that if they will not have the intelligence from the United States. But is it critical? I have not heard talking about that in critical terms. Cutting off Starlink, on the other hand, might be critical. That is something that would be our actual worry, because right now Ukrainians have no analog for the Starlinks. Europeans have announced that they want to have an analog to Starlink, but it hasn't been yet developed. So that would be a significant blow for the Ukrainians. How popular is the idea of federal EU-wide military amongst Europeans? Europe becoming global superpower feels like our last hope now. Best of luck over there. Thanks for advocating for UA. Not very popular. Like, federal Europe lives in hearts and souls of a lot of the pan-European people, but generally speaking, no one really wants, like, there's a lot of people that don't want this. The whole point of Europe is that it is, how do you say, it is antagonist to any kind of empire style state, right? So the the powers of the European Union that are superseding the states, they are a subject to the states' wills, right? Because individual states are dictating how the super state actors act. A federal Europe would essentially mean that there is a body of the European Union that can dictate the policy to the individual member states and act even if the communities and people and states don't want that. There have been discussions how to do it. There have been proposals to do so-called two-speed Europe for some people that want to have this, and then for other countries that don't want to do this. But it didn't really got much traction, mostly because essentially they more were considering preservation of unity within Europe as a peace guarantor rather than the development of the states. So potentially now we could see something like this happening on the military platform. But generally speaking, in Europe, the federal state solution is not something that is really considered mainstream. Kristin Troel Hansen, thank you so much for 100 Danish krona. I appreciate it. Combi Bastard, thank you so much for 10 Canadian bucks. Hi, Georgie. Доброго ранку. A question. Can Ukraine buy equipment that was sold by US to other countries? I remember US sold Morocco 150 Bradleys and gave Ukraine like 25 at the same time. So the normal procurement processes for these kind of things is that it is usually within the contract of purchase whether you have the rights to resell your arms. Maybe there is like a term limit and so on. You could easily understand, like, for example, if US would not want to see more Bradleys in the market so they can control the price, then they would say that no other country that already bought Bradleys can actually resell them. That is a purchasing, like, end purchase contract. Depending on each state on what kind of contract they have. But usually if there is rights to resale, there would still need to be an approval by the United States to approve the resale of goods. So answering your question, can the Bradleys, for example, be sold? Yes, if Morocco is allowed to resell those Bradleys and United States will agree to that resell. James Jan Emerson, thank you so much for 50 bucks. Appreciate it so very much. Stephen Bendel, thank you so much for 100 Norwegian kroners. Europe will rise, Europe is slow, but when it gets going, it goes. I already donated for the car, Slava Ukraini. Yes, and this is another very important point that Stephen is bringing up here. Now, guys, you've seen Europe, like you've seen how slow Europe is. But that slowness comes with momentum, right? I told you maybe some like 2 years ago, if you were here, then maybe you can remember, is that if Europe was very reluctant to kind of break ties with Russia and perceive Russia as a threat. That was true there. Like, just remember how it was back then. But now we are in a situation where it seems like Europe is like just full-blown momentum. Even US is basically proposing a way out. So if there would be like a mainstream politicians in Europe that wanted a way out for Europe to participate in to stop participating in this antagonism towards Russia, then there is a way out. Just say like United States is leading us. We're just doing what the United States says, right? It's an easy path out. It's not happening. We see that Europe, while slow, like they turn, and then they turn towards like, okay, Russia now is not our friend, like it's more antagonizing to us. And then we're going to start like rolling the slow ball. And now as the ball is rolling, it feels that it's like, wow, like like it's really just going on with the momentum. And you can hear this from European politicians that have an easy way out, yet they don't break with it. They say like, no, we said we're going with supporting Ukraine, we're going with supporting for Ukraine. So that's why, again, another way why I'm optimistic about Europe is because European momentum has shifted and it feels that we are thoroughly into that path for momentum of supporting Ukraine, and it feels that all of the antagonism of Donald Trump towards the European leaders, European democracies, and antagonizing the NATO alliance has kind of like pushed us even more towards that direction in Europe. So it feels we're getting even more speed towards the momentum. Already now, there is a serious discussion about troops in Ukraine, right? Even half a year ago, troops in Ukraine was just shut down even before discussions have started. We are already talking about like, well, how many should we send and at what point. So we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. Calebro, thank you so much for 50 Swedish krona. Why is Europe not discussing ditching the petrodollar system? By using it, it costs us money and benefits US state treasury by the decreasing inflation. Not completely sure what you mean here. I think like I think in your statement you used a lot of kind of like insights with like petrol dollars system and so on, and I feel I'm not fully grasping what you're specifically asking me exactly. Mary Elliott, thank you so much for £4. Appreciate it, and a very nice picture. All right, now I can go back to talking with you guys. We read all of the super chats and let's see. Share me with me your worries, guys, so we can cover it. Like, okay, if I don't see a question, yeah. What about the 700 billions euro allocated by the EU? Thomas, great question. Absolute disinformation. People have been like reading this and people misunderstood it completely. This is one of those things where the narrative just got picked up and absolutely diluted. It's not happening. Like, the simple answer, it is not happening. So I said specifically there was speculation because there is a big package that is expected to be prepared by the European Union, which is going to be about 10 billion euros right now. Then there is also discussions about the fact that Europe is not investing enough into its defenses. And then the German foreign minister that was talking about it, she said that, for example, when fighting coronavirus, we used out about over 700 billion to fight coronavirus. And she feels that we need to do about somewhat similar also to help Ukraine. and people took that like we need to do something similar to help Ukraine, and then they thought about like, well, Europe is planning a 700 billion package for Ukraine. That is not what was meant. That is not what was implied. It's just misunderstanding on top of misunderstanding on top of misunderstanding. So I think what was meant by the German foreign minister Annalena Baerbock was that we should get more investments into our European security, potentially matching the expenses of over 700 billion that we did to fight the coronavirus. So right now, our defense budget is about 500 billion. So it would potentially mean that it should be increased up to maybe 750 billion. So that is what was meant. It was not meant as Ukraine is going to receive 700 billion support package. It's just unfortunate. What was it called? The game. Like, I don't know how the game is called in English. In Latvia, we call it the broken telephone. So it's like when you sit in a line with a lot of people, and then you silently tell a word to a person that sits right to the right of you. And then he tells it to the next guy, and then he tells it to the next guy, and then tells it to the next guy. And then the last guy needs to repeat what you have said. So that was the game. And this is kind of the same. Chinese whispers. Yes, there we go. Chinese whispers. Thomas, will we see a breaking point with Ukraine drones overwhelming the battlefield? It's already kind of happening. We already are seeing it. Russians are crying about this. It's just, there's always this process of adaptation, right? Sometimes there is like solutions for older drones. Sometimes there are solutions from the drone side that become more deadly. We see that in general, Ukrainian capabilities of productions of drones are growing. And we see that since about the second half of last year, there was like a couple of drone initiatives, like started by Latvia and Germany. And we are now only seeing that this initiative is starting to bring in like thousands of drones that was promised. And so both the Ukrainian drone productions will grow, and also the European drone production facilities are growing. And with the expected increase in investments in defense, we will see more and more drone production of all types. So, yes, there will be more and more drones. Not happening saying, Dobro večera. How big a catastrophe this seemingly imminent lifting of American sanctions on Russia going to be? Can you still manage to keep Russian economy under pressure? The short answer is no, not really. But the bigger pressure on the Russian economy will be Ukrainian drone forces. So if there is going to be significant increase in defense investments, and Ukraine will get benefits from it, for example, from longer range drones that are able to target Russian oil production facilities, then there can be pressure extorted on the Russian economy that could be similar in scope to what? Because Russia is pretty much dependent on oil. It doesn't matter everything else. So if Ukrainians are just like growing their drone capabilities, let's say to destroy like, I don't know, 35% of Russian oil capabilities, production and delivery capabilities, that could be significant. That is significant reduction. Moreover, Russian economy is already in a pretty bad state. And even if there will be lifting of the sanctions, it's not that it will not mean that suddenly Russian economy will just blossom. That's not what's going to happen. It's still pretty in deep shit. Mahadi Antor, is air defense missiles run out of Ukraine? What will hamper drone production? So the air defense missiles are provided to Ukraine. The biggest problem for Ukraine is ballistic missiles. So there are two types of missiles that Ukraine is fighting. There is the cruise missiles. Cruise missiles fly low to the ground, and they usually just try to hide from radar detection. So they are flying low along the ground, flying relatively slow. And Ukraine is pretty good at shooting them down. And then there are ballistic missiles that kind of go up, high in the sky, and then with a huge speed, they fall down on the target. There is only a handful of systems that can intercept them. An absolute majority of these systems is the Patriot systems. And for Patriot systems, there is a need for Patriot missiles. So if the Trump's administration will not block the purchases of Patriot missile systems by Europe or Ukraine, then I'm expecting Ukraine to still get these Patriot missiles coming in. If otherwise, then it's going to be a big problem, because then Ukraine will have to deal with ballistic missiles. As for production facilities, a lot of production facilities in Ukraine are being revamped and they're moved like underground and in secret locations. There has been already significant push to do that for years, and a lot of the modern production facilities in Ukraine are well fortified. Felix Lepel, thank you so much for $50. Guys, again, thank you so much for contributions. I really, really appreciate it. But please, 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 first and foremost, consider participating in a fundraiser. I know this is my job. I appreciate the contributions. They help sustain myself, so don't get it wrong. Like it's still very much appreciated. But let's focus first and foremost on helping Ukraine. I will be fine one way or another. Oreshnik is a ballistic, right? Yes, Oreshnik missile. By the way, have you noticed that Putin is not talking about Oreshnik anymore? Oh, because it turned out to be absolute dog shit. Yes, the Shadow Fleet needs to be stopped. Agreed. That is something that Europe can do, actually. Like, if we're talking about sanctions packages, I feel that sanctions against the Russian Shadow Fleet, and if those will be enforced, are the best way to go forward. Adi 2019, reduce aid, sure, but US removing sanctions on Russia, will that really happen? So first and foremost, like as I said, like this is pure speculation, right? We're not knowing what Trump's administration will do. So far, there has been little to no movement in the area, and we're not really orienting on a lot of things that Trump says. So the logic that I've heard for why the sanctions could be lifted off Russia is that there is a desire within Trump's administration to fight China, and they are looking at Russia, and they essentially want to take Russia away from China to stop them being allies, which, again, in my perspective, is an absolutely stupid idea. But that is the logic that I've heard, and I can see how the administration that is heavily supposedly focused on being in trade conflict with China, that they would be interested to get Russia on their side, so to say. So that's the logic about sanctions. But I am not yet seen any dedicated actions towards it. Shed Show Talk, thank you so much for 7 Canadian bucks. USA is now the enemy. When will Euro wake up to that? Time for my country to live out to Budapest Agreement we signed. British strong. Yes, I don't agree that US is now fully the enemy. Firstly, more than half of US is very reasonable people. There is a lot of support for Ukraine. Secondly, and this is actually countering one of the Trump's narratives, right? So his narrative is now that I have the absolute dominance, that I have been elected by a majority, and more than that, that supposedly that Zelensky somehow swindled Biden into giving him money. I want to kind of cut to the main point, to the bullshit, that the money that was allocated to Ukraine was allocated in a bipartisan way through the Congress. It wasn't just like Biden being extorted for money, what Trump said. It was a bipartisan support for Ukraine. And while what's right now is happening within Republican Party is U.S. matters, so to say, I'm going to be diplomatic here. The point still stands that I truly see that there is a lot of goodwill and support for Ukraine and for our alliances amidst Americans. Now, Trump is obviously going to be a kind of brick in this whole equation. But again, if the democratic institutions will still work, there is potentially a chance in 2 years in midterm elections that Republican Party can potentially lose Congress. That will change things, right? Then we're gonna see a different equation. So I don't fully give up on United States so far, mostly because of the people of United States, because they are our friends, they are our allies, and I love them. But current administration definitely not helping their case. For sure, for sure. Like big if, like Toaster 4K, big if, yeah, absolutely. Like we don't know the future, right? Let's be very honest, guys, and on this channel as well, right? We do not know the future. We do not. Russia can outright win this war. Like Europe doesn't find way forward, we collapse, whatever. Russia wins in Ukraine, then we get war in European Union. Can that happen? Yes, there's a path for that. We do not know the future. The only thing we can do is we can discuss what world do we want to live in? Like, what is right in your opinion? And I'm sharing here with you on this channel what is right in my opinion. And I am telling you the things that is worth knowing if we want to do some actions and move towards, in how I see it, towards that right perspective, towards that right type of world that I would love to live in. So that's why I don't want to give up fully on the United States, because I know that there is a path forward for maybe US getting and redeeming themselves. And I know like how many of you are skeptical about this. And I know how many of you will feel ashamed about this. But a lot of people said that what's happening right now is basically Eastern Europeization of United States, that it's oligarchs that are coming to power, that the rights of the regular people are being cut down, and that the government is just being more and more centralized. This is like more representative of what's usually happening in Eastern Europe, the non-full democracies. But I've also seen these unperfect democracies moved towards being better democracies. So potentially this is the hardship for US to take to come to a better, more perfect union, so to say. I don't know. We don't know the future. But we need to figure out what is the future that we want and what should we do to act so we reach that future that we want. Can we lose on the way? Can we just fail? Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, if Russia takes over, I'm just going to be shot. Like I've been here advocating for years. Hopefully it doesn't happen. And I will try to do everything that I can. And thank you so much for the people that are staying here, all 2,777 of you that are staying here right now and agreeing with me, hopefully. Or disagreeing. To be honest, it's democracy. You have the right to disagree. Anyway, that's beyond the point. Let's get to actual things. HR Lopez, Georgie, do you Trump trying to become American first dictator? Well, he definitely has a fascination with dictators, right? He recently called Zelensky the dictator, but it's funny because, like to put the expression, a fascination of dictators, he never said a bad word about, I think, like even a single dictator. Like, I mean, maybe about North Korea and China, maybe there was like some bad words, but about Putin, not a single bad word. And then on everyone else, like he has been dumping nonstop just how atrocious and how vile of the people there are. So is Trump's the dictator? I think he has some fascination with this strongman mentality. There is definitely certain standardized desire to act towards dictatorship. I read the Project 2025, so there is definitely a pathway to create essentially the non-liberal democracy of United States. I don't think it is possible to become dictator in 4-year terms. So that's why I said the biggest tell for me is whether Trump will be able to target those election processes inside of United States. So if Trump will be able to delude those election processes, the ways how things are getting elected in the United States, then it's going to be a direct pathway. But as of right now, I'm a little bit as I said, neutral. Like it's a split. We're in a crossroads. There we go. To put it shortly. Let's make Kaliningrad Baltic Taiwan. Kaliningrad is full of Russians. Russians are not nice. Russians need big change in their mentality, but that's beyond the point today. Mahadi Antor, can US really sit out and let Russia take Europe? Doesn't the US lose huge support for their own policies around the world? Ain't that also hurt with containing China? It does, and I don't really. I feel still that there's a lot of Trump's rhetoric against Europe, mostly because how codependent we are. Like the amount of money we're making out off of each other is stupendous. Now, Europe is obviously taken for granted by the Americans. That's kind of like that's something that we already got completely in agreement with. Like we people in Europe know that, and we don't mind that. Like we don't mind that US is making a lot of money off of us. That's fine. But the fact of the matter is that if US will lose European markets, that is going to be stupidly expensive for US. Like the prosperity, the welfare, anything, it's like I don't have words to describe to that would help convey you the understanding just how big of a hit on the economy that would be for the United States. It's not something that is being discussed in the United States, and Europe is obviously taking for granted, and a lot of people in the United States are talking at us for that, like a lot of the Trumpists, like oh, Europe, you just have a failing economy, you don't have real democracy, all of those things. Like we allowed it because that's United States speaking, right? Like, and Americans are important for us, but when we're talking actual numbers, it's like that's a lot. That is a lot. Okay, Benny is writing, wow, Georgie, Australian media, Channel 9 News, Chinese warship 150 nautical miles of Sydney coast, 277 kilometers away, 3 reported Chinese warship still in international waters. Yeah, I mean, that's expected. The more US will retreat, the more things like AUKUS will be more important. Is US part of AUKUS? Is US part of AUKUS? Yes. Okay. Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Yes. Okay. Never mind. But closer cooperation with your regional partners will be great. For example, Japanese economy is going back up after almost 30 years of misery in Japan, like recovering from that bubble. Like 30 years of misery in Japan, their economy is finally growing. Holy moly. I've looked at the numbers and I couldn't believe my eyes. Yeah, Japan is recovering. So there you go. It's a great partner, especially if they will decide to rebuild their economy. Japan can provide a lot of the bilateral security with the Australians. So Japan, South Korea, Australia could really stand up to any aggressor. I'm pretty sure on the Asian Pacific. Goose Nuts, great nickname by the way. Thank you so much for $5 Canadian. Thank you, Ukraine Matters, for all your hard work. Slava Ukraini. The glory to the heroes, my friends. Macia Petek, thank you so much for €10. I hope that Trump is playing a game to bring bully Putin to negotiating table. You need to flatter him while also criticizing others. Once the bully is at the table, he becomes trapped. Well, I don't need to do anything because I'm a guy on YouTube. But obviously, someone in Ukraine, the Ukrainian diplomacy will need to obviously do as much as they can to keep US happy. So there's going to be a lot of bootlicking from the Ukrainians to Trump, though Zelensky has been surprisingly stoic. Like, I think that would be the right word. So he has been very stoic in the recent comments with regards. But because I'm a guy on YouTube, it doesn't really matter for me. So the only thing I can lose is subscribers or viewers. My views can go down and so on, guys. Oh shit, guys, it's not about views and so on. If there's gonna be like 10 people watching me, I will continue doing this because I don't matter. Ukraine matters. You know that. What matters for me is that there's continued right voices and right messages being taken online. Now, sometimes I can get preachy, sometimes I get annoying, sometimes I get it's diluted. That's true. I'm not a very good YouTuber, but I will still do everything that I can to support Ukraine because that is the future that I want to live in. That is the future that I want to work towards. And I am really happy that you are taking your time to stay here with me. I appreciate it. If you even support Trump and for some reason still are watching me, I don't know how you can get through it, but just please know that Trump is falling very far from the world that I imagine us living in, and his rhetoric and his personality. That is why I cannot, in any kind of goodwill or any kind of some kind of a blackmail scenario saying that, oh, Georgie, I will quit your channel and you will start losing views if you continue talking bad about Trump. It doesn't fucking matter for me. Like, what matters for me is that the right messages about the future of the world that I want to live in get delivered. Okay. Broga, thank you so much for €2.50. Sorry, €2.49. I appreciate it. Germany canceled military aid for Ukraine, 3 billion. Yes, because Germany will have elections right now, and basically they don't have a government that is working right now, so it's going to be transitioned to the next government. They're having elections this Sunday. Stay who you are. Yeah, I will stay. Like, look, that's exactly the whole point. Like, I'm so bad at growing YouTube and like focusing and producing more content, and I will tell you why exactly that is as soon as I can. I promise. You will know for sure why I wasn't putting as much video, as much stuff, and you will be very glad for it. But not right now yet. Let's jump very quickly to the things that I wanted to show you. So there is this Kiel Institute tracker for the supply for Ukraine, and it's incredibly amazing even. Let's see, I need to switch the scene. So let's transition to this one. So if you haven't seen this is the Kiel Institute tracker, right? You know, about the facts. So we're going to cover here a couple of things. We're going to cover the fact that Trump said that US contributed what is it like, because the numbers keep changing. He said like first like was 200 billion, then he said it was like actually 500 billion, then at some point he messaged no, it was actually 300 billion, then he said that Zelensky doesn't know where half of the billions is. So stuff like that he said. And the second thing that we're going to tackle is can we really increase, and like how much are we contributing to Ukraine. So Kiel Institute tracker is incredible. Like, it shows this overview data about GDP, like how is the government support to Ukraine, type of assistance, what is the donor country, total bilateral allocations, donor transparency index, and stuff like that. Super good. And you can actually go to the data set here and you can download the whole thing, and the whole thing is incredible even more. Now, I don't want to show it to you because it's a data set. You know, if you haven't seen how data set looks, okay, no, I think I need to show how data set looks just so you understand that it's not very exciting something exciting to show on the stream. Let's see if I can see. Would this work? Oh wait, oh, it's already working. Oh, I think you should be already seeing. Yes. No, wait, that's a different one, no? Yeah, okay, that's a different one. It's yeah, this one. There we go. So it's a data set with a lot of like data that is just basically in these columns and numbers and so on, and it has like incredible amounts. It has like, I don't even know, like many these different tabs. You can see I'm scrolling tabs on the bottom. There's like a lot of it, like units over time. So if you ever wanted to know literally everything about help to Ukraine, you can go on this skill tracker. You can download this data set. There is like everything, howitzers, how it's being delivered, and so on, when it's being delivered. Everything is there. It's superb. So, and then in this tracker, let me switch back to the skill. I was very annoyed by specifically this one, or I'm actually going to show it to you in a little bit different format. If I have it somewhere. Oh, maybe I don't have it. I think I closed it. Okay, but let's look at this one. So this is the government support to Ukraine by donor country GDP. And it says like Estonia has contributed 2.2% of GDP, Denmark 2.2% of GDP, Lithuania 1.8%. But it's a little bit for me been always annoying because these numbers are inaccurate. Because what this shows like as percentage of GDP is a yearly valuable. So because this war has been now ongoing for 4 years, this should be divided by 4, right? Like, do you understand, right? If we contributed like 2.2% of a yearly GDP, that means over 4 years, it was only 0.5% per year. Makes sense? Makes sense. So I was a little bit annoyed by it. So I said, like, I want to revamp this chart. So I took a lot of the data and actually broke it down. And I broke it down in a way that it would make it also interesting. So let me just move the camera to the other direction. So what I did, I took the countries that have been best contributors to Ukraine, and then I put their yearly GDP, and then I said, like, well, now I need an average wage for that country. So I took the GDP and substituted for the yearly average wage of the country. And then because like not a lot of people are usually getting the average wage, I actually divided the average wage by half just to kind of get like 25% of the average wage. So you can look at the country and then you can look at the column number 1. That's the average yearly wage per country, what people earn. Then, and you can tell me if it's realistic or not, just so we clear. And then I divided this by 12 months to say, well, what is it if we take like it's a monthly income, like average monthly wage. And it's super low numbers compared to Denmark, to Latvia, and so on. But it's a good initiative. And then I took like that percentage that we talked about, the contributions, and I put that percentage with but what about if we translate it like every month, the country then from a salary would buy something for Ukraine, how much would it be? So essentially we're transitioning from looking at the countries and how much countries contributed. We're trying to narrow it down to the perspective of if this would be like an average dude that earns this much per month in that country, and what would his contribution to Ukraine actually look like? So for example, Estonia is contributing about $6 to Ukraine. Okay, if the average wage of a Ukrainian in this country would be like, or for Estonian in this country would be 1,900, do you think they can increase that contribution from $6 to maybe $8? I can see that. Denmark, one of the biggest contributor, the monthly wage is like over $6,000, and they're contributing about $18 per month. That's like basically what I wanted you to say is like look at the country and look how much per month they're contributing compared to like the average wage, and this is like not a very big average wage. It's pitiful. Like it's pennies. What I wanted you to understand is basically like South Korea is buying like a small pizza to Ukraine, though I'm not sure where you can buy a small pizza for 24 cents, but like a small pizza to Ukraine. Or for example, United Kingdom buys Ukraine 2 cups of tea every month. That's about the scale of contributions that we're doing. Croatia pays for 1 bus ride. Finland offers a special lunch. Latvia gets another bus ride. Estonia buys a ticket to the movies, for example. It helps you visualize what is the scale of contribution. So if we're looking, for example, at Estonia, if you're buying one movie ticket to Ukraine every month, if you really want to, could you buy two movie tickets from your salary? And my answer to that is yes. So all of this chart, what I wanted to show you specifically is that total contribution per month to Ukraine from all of these countries is about $120. So not a lot. Very, very, very minimal. So it would not be an insane thought to consider that we could contribute more. Because when we're putting that money that we're helping Ukraine with and putting it like towards like our government budgets, we can do much, much more if we're willing. Because right now, these are very, very basic. Can you make a similar table for Russians? How much an Ivan is paying for the war? Then we compare with EU citizens. Hey, Ivan is not paying anything for the war because if you're dead, no one needs to pay. Then you're the one getting paid. Well, your parents or friends or whatever. So, dead man tells no tales, so to speak. Can you put the chart up, Georgie? Yeah. How I can share it with you? I don't know how I can share it with you. How can I do share? Can I do? Oh man, how I can share this? I can share a spreadsheet, right? Chart. Share, copy link. To restricted. Anyone with the link. Anyone with the link can view. There we go. Copy link. So there is the link to the spreadsheet if you want. You can make a copy for yourself if you want. I'm donating 30% of my monthly income to Ukrainian defense and I still live a comfortable life. My fellow Australian countrymen could do as well. They're just complacent and still ignorant. For real. Firstly, Clara, thank you. Fucking thank you. 30%, guys. Incredible. Like, that is insane. That is really insane. Just don't be in like my shoes when after all of my donations to Ukraine, when they came out and said like, well, you donated the money, but it's not really donated money, so it's still counted as an income. So please pay the taxes from the whole thing. So when I paid the taxes, then it turns out like I didn't really make the money that year. I actually lost the money. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for support for Ukraine. That's really, really important for Ukraine. Yeah. But yeah, incredible. So the point that I'm making is that the countries can do a lot more. That right now, the contributions are very, very minimal. Including PPP is good to compare countries. Yeah. It's this was just like a quick chart, right? Obviously, we can go into like PPP, the prices, and so on, and that is fair. But I took the average wages and I kind of took the percentage from the average wages, so it technically can be counted as a PPP. No, it doesn't matter. So it's don't overthink it. Because also like because with PPP it's not fully accurate because where you spend that money also matters. For example, if Denmark spends that money in Denmark, then the output will be less than if Denmark spends that money in Ukraine, for example. Do you understand? Shimra Jamana, as a deeply ashamed American seeing Ukraine heroically persist and defend their country, democracy in general, is that gets me through the day. Yep. And your support for Ukraine is what gets them through the day. Hi, Georgie. Here's something for you and the team. And don't worry, I have just contributed to the fundraiser as well, Slava Ukrainian. Thanks, QR. And thank you so much specifically for the fundraiser contribution. I really appreciate it. British just need to send our RAF in, and it's then sower. What would Russia do? We have Atom 2. RAF. What is RAF? Okay, British RAF. Royal Air Force. Okay, yeah. Yeah. The easiest things that European can do is literally close the skies over Ukraine. Like, if they will close the skies over Ukraine, Ukraine will get more than enough boost to resist Russians. Normality, remember, thank you so much for 10 pounds. We love Americans, or sorry, I mean 10 quid. We love Americans some. Interesting to see if Americans start fleeing autocracy. Will the world do vet them or Republican, and turn back reps? Just asking. Okay, I need to understand the question. Interesting to see if Americans start fleeing autocracy. Will the world do? Will the world do vet them? Or no, obviously there will be no vetting on the Americans, and obviously we're gonna help them. Like, come on, you're from the Isles. Maybe you don't consider yourself European, though I would consider, but you know that we would for sure help. Like, the humanitarian values in Europe are strong, so no chance that we would abandon them. Rope access work. Thank you so much, 200 Swedish kroner. Sweden and Denmark must close the Öresund to the Russian shadow fleet now. Agreed. Agreed completely. Chris Fortune, welcome to the Brother in Arms. Appreciate it, my friend. Right. Let's answer some of the more... per person price, we need across. Yes. I have dibs of staying at Georgie's house, for sure. You're always welcome. Mikasa Sukasa, so to say. Do you know anything about 8 Patriot systems from Israel? They were delivered to a country in Europe. After that, their journey is not well known. It was not 8 Patriot systems. I believe it was 8 Patriot launchers. So they would be an addition to existing Patriot systems or replacement. Do you think, Romeo Francisco, do you think Secretary of Defense will be nominated by the European Commission in the coming few years? It's quite possible. I think having a Secretary of Defense would be a good way forward. Romeo Francisco, do you consider the measure announced by von der Leyen will be an absolute game changer? The package will be potentially bigger than the health package for COVID resilience. Yes, it absolutely can, and I think it absolutely will. It's just... So this was every month. Yeah. It was like a monthly, right? So because I wanted to calculate it ongoingly, like a person, My whole point of that chart that I did was to make it, understandable for a regular person, right? If I would be a person living in that country and this is what I get monthly, how much of it is getting contributed to the Ukrainian? And it's like, well, I'm paying for one bus ride for Ukrainians, as an example. It's just to kind of, visualize that. How big is that package needs to be in your opinion? So current budget for European Union is 560 billion, I believe, total. I think that we can easily double that. So I would say 1 trillion, it could easily be. And you need to understand that it's not going to be like the package. It's like how much countries are spending on their own defense. That is the core. So I think it easily can go into 1 trillion. Ivan V. Ukraine advanced in Pokrovsk. Did the Russians pull out their division? No. They have been hitting back at Ukrainians. Plus, there are reports that they are now concentrating in Selidove right now. So I'm expecting there's going to be additional push from Russians coming soon. I like it bigger than us. I mean, Europe is bigger than the United States. It's just we have been slacking so much. No Nobel for Trump. For what? Georgie, is the fundraiser for trucks or other equipment like thermal vision? I believe this one is just for trucks because the guys said that they can get roughly one truck for like 10,000, so that's what was estimated. But overall, we also do some other fundraisers, and we'll do more fundraisers. But I'm not gonna tell you that because those are the news that I need to share specifically when they come out. Could it be Europe bad guy, US good guy negotiations tactics? No, it's like every time someone describes me that Trump is playing 5D chess, I'm like, have you seen the guy? Are you fucking serious? Sweet here, we will never give Trump a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, Nobel Peace Prize for what? Like, what did he do? Uga, economics, but Ukraine didn't accept the deal. Yes, Ukraine didn't accept the deal. Remember, guys, if you want to write me something, a comment, something on your mind so we can discuss it, then just write at Ukraine Matters in chat, and then the message gets highlighted for me, because otherwise there's just way too much for me to read. Right, did I have some other topic to talk about? Yeah, there was this topic, and I can actually talk about some of this thing while I'm waiting for some additional comments. So, BBC looked into the recent Trump statements and talked about this. Now, I don't want to super analyze, like I'll leave a link to this article in the chat right now, and I will try to remember to leave it also in a description for the video so people can follow. But in general, what I wanted to kind of focus on is where these narratives are coming from. And the fact is, I think I know, because Russian propaganda, it's definitely Russian propaganda, right? No doubt whatsoever. Absolutely no doubt. But it's a very specific kind of Russian propaganda. And I'm pretty sure I know where this is coming from. Because a lot of the Russian propaganda that is being out in the media is specifically targeted. They usually are targeting like something like broad policies. They're targeting like population. They're trying to delude the conversation. So something like NATO expansion was very, 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 how do you say, very dreading to Russia, that there was some biolaboratories in Ukraine, things like this. So it appeals to certain audience within our countries. These points are not that way. These points are actually almost contrary to a lot of the things of the mainstream Russian propaganda. What these points are Putin's talking points. Let me explain. Zelensky is a dictator without elections. The only person in the Russian propaganda that always talks about and questions legitimacy of Zelensky is Putin in his interviews. It's not the main Russian propaganda. Main Russian propaganda doesn't usually talk about it that much. It talks about, it's like Zelensky, he's like a puppet of the United States. They don't have anything. He's like a fascist. He's like not a real Jew. All of these things. But questioning his legitimacy is a specific Putin's talking point. And talking about the fact that there was no elections is, again, it's a Putin's talking point. Putin's saying that Zelensky's approval rating is just 4%. 4% wasn't really mentioned anywhere. I actually checked a lot of the Russian propaganda sources. This is not mainstream Russian propaganda. But I can easily imagine that if Trump had an extensive conversation with Putin, then Putin actually said, Zelensky, he's completely illegitimate. Like, the people in Ukraine don't support him at all. Like, his support is only like 4%. He's a dictator, Stuff like that. Easily. You should never have started it. Again, not really mainstream media propaganda, right? No one has really been claiming that Ukraine really started this war. There has been like discussions about NATO potentially expansion. There has been discussions about things with regards to Ukraine, like having biolabs, whatever. But no one really said that Ukraine should have started it. What is there is a discussion, specifically he mentioned this in a context, that Ukraine should have just given Russia the territory that Russia wanted. This is again a Putin's talking point. Specifically, what he mentioned was that Putin, he said, like, I just wanted like what was like, Russian, like it was Russians that were living there, and we couldn't really let them go because they were part, and we needed to protect Russians and so on. This is specifically Putin's talking point. So long story short, the things that Trump has been stating, all of these facts that Zelensky is a dictator without elections, the 4% support, the fact that Ukraine has been potentially at fault for starting it and badly treating the Russian-speaking population inside Ukraine, all of this is specifically Putin's talking point. So it's absolutely clear to me that when Trump called Putin and listened to his bullshit, he absolutely bought that fucking bullshit. He absolutely reciting not general Russian propaganda, but specific Putin's talking points. So that's why, for me, like what Trump has been saying recently, it's just like, it's not just regurgitation of like Russian propaganda. It's like he's quoting Putin verbatim. Yeah, Zelensky's popularity dropped 4%. Potentially, yeah. Zelensky is still extremely popular. Extremely popular. Holy shit. Like a lot of these channels, Telegram channels in Ukraine started like doing these, well, how do you feel about Zelensky? And there is a lot of Telegram channels that don't like Zelensky. Like, don't get me wrong, there is like a lot of critique for that. And these Telegram channels, people in these, like, and I'm saying like, 50,000 votes and so on. Obviously, this is not representative, but like absolute majority, I'm talking like 60 plus, 70 plus, is like Zelensky is doing a fine job. And it's the same channel in which like I would see like message after message after message how shit Zelensky is. So does Zelensky has dropped opinion perception since the start of the war? Absolutely. He's a wartime president. Wartime presidents are notoriously unpopular. The fact that Zelensky is still over 50% is actually mind-blowing for me. That's how it is. Because I truly understand that as soon as the war is over, Zelensky will be absolutely kicked out of the office and never to return. He will be a legendary figure, but it's not going to be like he's going to have a big political life. That's not going to happen. Scott Williams, you're Zelensky. How do you create victory scenario? Okay, so Zelensky is already doing a lot of good things, right? So the victory scenario is already being created, right? So Ukraine is doing a lot of things. The problem of Ukraine is they are not yet fully self-sufficient. So the goal that Zelensky wants to achieve is to get to sell, how do you put it? Domesticate as much as you can. That is your victory plan. Make everything in Ukraine. He needs to sell the investments in Ukraine as a way to go. I would say that he needs to get Europe on its side, but I think Europe is generally already on his side. So I think what he needs to do now that there is a desire from the European Union to invest more, what he needs to do is he needs to prepare detailed investment plans for security investments inside Europe, long-term. Commitments to building factories, and then saying, like, as soon as the war is over, we're going to supply stuff to Europe. Right? So if I would be Zelensky, I would push on that economic integration to get more and more of that European investments into Ukraine defense-wise. I truly believe that right now there is a great window of opportunity for Ukraine, and I think like if they can domesticate everything, they're going to be able to do much more than Russia. If Musk switches Starlink off Ukraine, is there an alternative? Not right now. Steve Godin, do countries still write off their equipment as their initial value, or do they give the actual value when saying we gave this to Ukraine? I believe they count now the amortized value. So they're counting the amortized value. Amortized. They still use the replacement value though. Some of it varies country for country. Can the retired F-16 pilot for Ukraine? It's unclear right now. It is unclear. I've heard that, but maybe some are flying, but so far I have seen no confirmation of that. Master verdicts. Is there anyone significant opposition in Congress and the Senate to counter Trump's crazy Ukraine plans? No. Can Ukraine hold on while Europe sorts its defense sector out? I think so, yes. Ukraine has enough support to last through 2025. Easy. Well, okay, not easy, but Ukraine looks at it long term, so. Need videos. Yes, there is no way that idiot is playing chess in his death with Putin. No. He has utter fascination with Putin. It's absolutely clear to like anyone that listened to like at least one of his statement about Putin. Mahari, how long will it take if money ain't an issue? So, generally speaking, the red tape is the biggest stopper in EU. We now hear a lot of, and I cannot tell you how I hear it, but we hear a lot that a lot of red tape is being cut. A lot. Like if before you need a procurement for procurement paper to get some kind of a contest for production of something, now you need just a preliminary analysis. Like now you will need to do like some kind of preliminary analysis of the production of stuff. And if it suits some kind of cases that have been outlined by the country's Ministry of Defense, then you can actually get essentially a purchase and or production contract quite fast. So I feel that within a year we can grow our production by 50 up to 50% if it's done fast. If we get all decisions now. If it's done like the first half of the year, then I feel we can grow about 30%. And I believe by the end of 2026, with proper investments, we can double our output, if not triple. But this is like, a lot of the variations. We can do it overall. Europe can do it. As you can see, like there's still plenty of money to go around. It's just the will is what matters. David Silva, Georgies, what is your opinion on the newest NATO Secretary General, our former Prime Minister Mark Rutte? Is he doing a good job having replaced Jens Stoltenberg? I mean, I don't put a lot of value into the NATO Secretary General. He is right now trying to balance out the positions of the allies. So he's definitely going to be trying to be more diplomatic in his statement, but that's what Secretary General is supposed to do. But if you're like, depends like, what are you like? Are you process oriented, how he works, or are you result oriented? Because if the result are so far that there's increase in output and coordination of efforts inside of NATO countries, that sounds like a win. Okay. David Sunday, how is Starlink used in general? How crucial it is? Extremely crucial. It's a main source of internet. Internet is how people communicate. Media channels, like uploads of videos, all of the communication centers flows, like video streams from different units towards a centralized command. A lot, like really a lot. From like flying drones and like sea naval drones to like regular units, communications. It's incredible like how much it's being used. Do glide bombs use GLONASS? If so, are they efforts to EW to disrupt it? Yes, but also glide bombs have internal navigation, the flight-based navigation. So like, what's the air resistance, air speed, and so on. So it also has the internal navigation systems, independent ones, analog navigation system. There we go. Doesn't Europe have its own space agency? Why can't they build their own satellite? If so, how long would they? Well, there is a plan to substitute Starlink, but it's in development. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's in development. Kingdom of Macedonia says, do you think World War II is coming and can Europe win? I think World War II was already came and we won. All right, last couple of questions, and then we're going to wrap it up so it's not getting too long for people that are watching this. Anything else, guys, on your mind? Anything else that gets you worried? Something that gets you like, oh, I'm not sure if Ukraine can win this, or so on. And because I want to make sure that people that finish watching this video, they get the full kind of understanding that no, there is a great path forward, that Russia is not as strong as it was in 2022, that a lot of equipment has been already lost by Russia, that they're having trouble with manpower, that European Union countries have incredible capabilities to grow production, that there is a political will that is now shifting, that militarily we're already preparing for war, that Ukrainians know all full well how to fight, and that they are increasing their capabilities to potentially impose their kinetic sanctions on Russia. So there is a lot of good that is happening. And there is a lot of media noise. And what I wanted to cut through with this stream right here is to cut through all of that media noise. Support the rallies around the world on Monday. Yes, I think there is like Ukraine supporting rallies, right? I think that would be great. Kingdom of Macedonia, do you think World War III is coming and can Europe win? I think World War III will come if we will not do enough right now. So that's the right answer. Hi, Georgies. How is situation at the Polish and Romanian border? Well, as far as I know, we are both Poland and Romania are in Schengen, so I don't think they have any border checks or border controls. So I think it's calm between Poland and Romania. If you're talking about what's the situation with the Romanian and Polish border with Ukraine, if I'm not wrong, that both countries have declared that this is a special interest zone of their countries. So it is now like not prosecuted, but it's you cannot essentially block it because it's considered like a critical. It's considered like critical part of the infrastructure of the country for run. So it cannot be really blocked. Zelensky for EU president, very interesting idea. To be honest, not a bad push at all. Like Zelensky called for EU army. I think there is something in this. There is a huge respect for Zelensky inside of European Union. I think he can be really united voice inside of Europe if he wants to. We'll see how it goes. What do you think of alliance of countries bordering Russia? Well, it's already happening. We call it NATO. David Sunday, have the tactics shifted recently or as a strong Ukrainian offensive tactics in comparison? Not the tactics that shifted for Ukrainians a little bit, mostly because they're suffering from the gliding bombs. But in general, Ukraine was just pretty short on resources to fight Russians. But Ukraine also has been very beneficial to stay in the defensive position. They have been losing a lot less men, and they have been doing great job putting a lot of attrition value against Russia. Sean Talbot, thank you so much for $5. In the words of Rick Wilson, Donald Trump doesn't play chess. He eats the pieces, shits on the board, and makes monkey noises. It's a thing that's gonna go down with me today to the bed. KP, Molotov on Ribbentrop split Ukraine 50-50. Molotov, von Ribbentrop split Ukraine 50-50. They can do what, like, the point, what I want to make, like, guys, at this point, I need to address, and probably that's really, thank you so much, guys, for asking questions. So the agreement that Trump and Russia will deal, like, for example, we're going to split Ukraine or Russia will take this and so on. The point is that that agreement does not stand. It's a false narrative, I think, of Trump's perception that United States is this big hegemony of the world. That is not the case anymore. So to put this long story short, sometime after the Second World War, United States took on itself the role of the world police. That role came with super benefits. It came firstly with the political and military benefits, and then it came down with the economic benefits. The political benefits came down to the fact that US was an acting policeman of the world. They were going around police and they were beating up the bad guys. The problem is that the bad guys were not always super bad, and then other people considered the bad guys good, and it always created a lot of back and forth against US. But sometime around the early 2000s, US fully withdrew themselves from being the world police. They said no more. When US gave up that world policing, their influence and political impact have deteriorated. So now, not everything that US does goes. That's not anymore how the world works. Secondly, and I'm trying to be very short without going too much into it, economically, after the Second World War, US was the hegemon because Europe was depending on it, and that was where the markets were. Everything else was pretty much dependent on it. Now we're in a lot more complex world. We allow China to grow and be an antagonist to us, to put their tentacles all over the world. And Europeans are also a lot more integrated. We are not just trading with the United States, we're also trading with each other. When the Soviet Union fell apart, the Europe just grew intensively. And for example, a country like Poland was huge boon for a lot of the European internal market. And that was a big thing. And now, as we're part of the Europe, now as we're part of the European Union, we don't have any borders. Our own internal trading is massive. Plus, we're trading with a lot of countries around the world. There is no more economic hegemony of the United States. Like, is it the biggest, like, trading, like, country in the world? Yeah. But there is others that are also pretty big. So now, in this modern type of world, United States and global world, also connected with the internet and shipping lanes and everything, then United States is not the primary and only supplier or producer or stuff like this. It's a big player, but not the only one. So the point is, it feels for me that Trump, and actually Putin to an extent as well, are coming to this conversation like we're still living in the 1950s, 1960s, where whatever US does, goes. That is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. They want it to be the case. They are acting for it to be the case. And the only way it will be the case if everyone will just go along with this. But we already see that Ukraine is not going along with this. And we already are hearing some encouraging voices from the European Union that they will not also go along with this. And if they will not go along with this, then this world will never happen. So that's why that Ukraine is going to be split. I feel that this is like an old style thinking, and it's portraying towards Russia and the United States a lot more power than they actually have in reality. Kingdom of Macedonia says, love from Czechia, and do you think there will be Europa with Russia war, and who would win, and how should NATO prepare? Also, can Ukraine still win? Yes, Ukraine can still win. There's a clear path how to do it. There will be war between the European states and Russia only if we are allowing Ukraine to lose. I don't think there is a reason to do so. Paul Waddington, hey, Ukraine Matters team. As an American, I'm devastated by our stupid government. Do we think it is time for Ukraine to redevelop nuclear weapons? Nuclear weapons is bad option. So let me explain. Nuclear weapons is a deterrent. When you're already in the active conflict, deterrent doesn't really work. Like, think about it this way. If Ukraine suddenly gets nuclear weapons, what then? Like, do they fire them in Russia because they're already at war? Like, that doesn't make sense, because Russia then just going to fire nukes and then everyone loses. What's the point of nuclear weapons? Nuclear weapons should have been a proper response and preventive action before the invasion of Ukraine. That is when nuclear weapons were needed. At this moment, they're not really helping. Nuclear weapons will become relevant once again when there is a peace plan, because we see that collective defense is too much of a weak point if there is no political will. So it's too dependent on political will. It doesn't matter what kind of agreements were signed. What matters is if there is a political will. And because we see that we're right now in a very uncertain time period, that means that collective defense just does not work. Therefore, individual defense and nuclear weapons. Nukes, 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 nukes. Peacetime deterrence. We should have, like, I would say we need to have 1 or 2 countries extra to have nukes in Europe. I would say right now it's United Kingdom and France. I think Sweden should also probably have nukes, like the Nordic regions, like I would say. And Poland probably. Poland, Ukraine should also get nukes once the war is over. I believe that would be great safety provider for the European continent. Michael Maggi, thank you so much for €5. And again, is there anyone who actually would stand any chance of winning an election in Ukraine against Zelensky? Yeah, for sure. Like once the war is over, yeah, for sure. There's plenty. Like people like Zaluzhny, someone like Zaluzhny could stands great chance. There is a lot of politicians that also are quite popular. But mostly right now, the eye kind of falls on the military people. That it's expected that a lot of them will become politicians after the war. But Zaluzhny is kind of like the primary target. All right, lovely guys. Thank you so much for all of your contributions. Thank you so much for supporting the fundraiser. Thank you so much, most importantly, for supporting Ukraine. This is what matters. I don't matter. Trump and his rhetoric doesn't matter. All of this shit does not matter. Cut through the bullshit. Cut through the white noise. Follow the actions. There's a very, very good path available for Ukraine to still win this war. Russia is not strong as it's being portrayed right now. Don't believe all of the bullshit. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you next time.